Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode 274. We are joined by a very special guest who I think I teased on last episode was coming on today. I'll introduce you to him in a second. But very first thing I want to do today, if you are listening on the day of release, is the 28th of November. So we are just coming into the kind of the Christmas season, as it were, within the next few days. So that's going to be fantastic. And I have got a review that I need to read that was left on Apple Podcasts for us. So I will read that to you now. The title of the review was Superb, Enlightening Podcast, 5 stars. The guests and subject matter of all the Health Oddity podcasts are also interesting and inspiring. Peter and James are both brilliant hosts. There you go, Pete. Adding their own experiences and good humor into the mix. Really great listening. And that was from Mama Barbell. That's Mama Barbell. So if you would like to please send me your postal address and have a look on if you go onto the Health Oddity Instagram, click on the link tree, you'll be able to see a menu there for merchandise, and just have a look. Let us know if you'd like a Health Oddity t-shirt, hoodie or sweater, and what size, and also your postal address, and we will get that sent off to you ASAP. So thank you very much for that review. So yeah, like we always say, Apple Podcasts for our reviews, please. Spotify, you can leave us a 5-star review, and if you don't already follow us on or subscribe, sorry, on YouTube, do that as well. Mr. Peter Lant, you are a brilliant host. How are you doing?
I am. Yeah, I'll take that.
It's official. You are a brilliant host.
Hey, no, thank you very much. That was Jeanette, wasn't it? So
yeah,
thank
it was.
you.
It was. Yeah.
What was I going to say? I'd say now to anybody listening, press pause and go and have a quick something to eat, because we're going to be talking about diet and food and stuff like that. And you'll be sitting there going, "Oh, I'm hungry now." So this podcast might have the exact opposite effect to what we want in the very, very short term. It's like going shopping when you're hungry, isn't it?
Okay. So we are joined today, as Pete just kind of alluded to there, we're joined by Mr. Shane Nugent. How are you doing, Shane?
I'm very, very well. Thanks ever so much for having me on the podcast. It's been I've been excited to jump on.
Excellent, excellent. So Shane is from he has a business called Quantum Nutrition, and we're going to kind of talk all things nutrition. And what I really love, I've followed Shane for a number of years actually, and kind of touched base with him a few times online, and hopefully in the near future, Shane's going to start working with us at my gym in Chelmsford at Unique Results, offering kind of like nutrition, education, and coaching for our members. But obviously, there's so many people out there who are, talking about nutrition and diet and healthy eating in this space. But what I really like about Shane's approach, from everything that I've seen, is he's very, very pragmatic, very, very sensible, and not shifted around by fads and things like that, which often I'm sure we'll talk about that on the podcast today. Just good, solid nutrition education. And I think there's a lot of confusion out there with people at the moment. We just talked a little bit about it before we started recording, but we're going to talk about that today anyway. So Shane, yeah, maybe do you want to just for the listeners, just tell us a little bit about about yourself, about how you got into being so interested and so highly educated around nutrition, and just a little bit about your background before we kind of kick off, if that's all right.
Absolutely, yeah, no problem whatsoever. So I think my first sort of element of interest in nutrition, I can actually remember the exact conversation that I had, and this is a number of years ago. So I used to play Sunday League football, and I just started doing my degree in sport and exercise science at Sheffield Hallam. So I live in Chesterfield, which is probably about 13 miles away-ish. So I used to commute across and commute back at the weekends, do a bit of bar weights, pay for some beer tokens and things like that, and then go and play a bit of Sunday League football as well. And it was at like I think it was half time, and the lads were just like, "I'm shot to pieces. Like, I need help with what I need to eat here." And one of my modules was nutrition, so I gave him like a little bit of advice, and then after that, a couple of the others said, "Oh, can you help me as well with this, that, and the other?" Really simple stuff. And this was my first year of university, so I'm not going to sit here and say that my nutrition was the best, shall we say. There was lots of nutrition happening at like 3 a.m. and stuff at that time. So, so anyway, I wasn't exactly. I was learning at that stage, shall we say. So I went through my degree, and in my final year, I very, very much took it seriously. So I was really into rock climbing at the time as well. I'd done it for a number of years, and because it was at Sheffield Hallam University, it's like right near the Peak District, and like that's like a bit of a rock climbing mecca, especially for like outdoor traditional climbing and things. So the British climbing team manager was actually also, just by pure chance, he was also the principal lecturer on my course. So I went and knocked on his door and just said, I don't want to do like a rubbish thesis at the end of the year. I want to do something that's really interesting that I'm going to get my teeth stuck into. And he said, and just out of nowhere, he said, "Well, just come wait with it was the junior British climbing team that he assigned me to." And he says, "I'm more than happy for you to do that." And he's like, "You're the only student that's actually come along and said, can I do a decent project and not, just do a survey and get loads of other students to do something. And then it's pretty much the same as everybody else's project." So I did that, and then I found it fascinating. And there was one of the other lecturers at the time called Mayor Rancordis. He's pretty prolific on social media as well with advice, and I sort of looked up to him, and I think he'd just completed a course with the International Olympic Committee as well, and he mentioned it in one of the lectures. I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, what is that? And I approached him and asked him about it, and he says, you've got to be referred onto it. You've got to have a couple of people that say, you're suitable for the program. So there was him and the principal lecturer that supervised my research. They both recommended me onto there. So I went on to study with the Olympic Committee for 2 years, which was all online and very sort of athlete focused. And we had some like seriously intensive, like 24-hour exams. So you could complete the exam anytime in 24 hours. But yeah, it was pretty crazy, the intensity of those. And then I went on to do my master's degree, and I worked with at the time he was a junior champion boxer, and he was just turning pro. So it was much more of a weight management, preserving muscle tissue whilst making sure he's making weight for fights. And obviously, facilitating his training so he can punch the other guy in the head as hard as he possibly can and all that stuff. Again, really loved that. And then I'm midway through my doctoral research at the minute, which is slightly different because it's more in I've got a little bit more of a business head on here. So it's more like workplace wellness and seeing how we can improve the wellness of staff in companies with, they might have a couple of thousand employees. And if we can reduce absenteeism in there by even 1%, it might save that company hundreds of thousands. And it's a no-brainer all around for that. So I'm midway through it, and to be transparent, it's paused for, I'd say, probably another year, just because I've got 3 kids that are 7, 5, and 2 at the minute, and I didn't have very many grey hairs 7 years ago, and there's been a lot going on. I'm just thinking maybe just whilst they're young, just don't be doing too much,
Yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, and now with quantum nutrition, so that was your kind, you did a degree, you did your master's, like you say, you're kind of midway through your doctoral research, and you've obviously. So what was it that made you, from doing a kind of a kind of generic sort of broad sports science degree, then you decided, well, actually, nutrition is the way that I want to go. That's what I want to focus on, over and above any of the other kind of ways you could have potentially gone. What was it about that made it, that really kind of took your interest and made you go down that route?
I'll tell you what it was. So if I take you back to that conversation I had at that Sunday League match there with the lads at half time and at full time, nobody was asking me about force velocity when they were jumping up so I was like, no, I'm not really interested in that side of things. Maybe performance analysis could have been a bit of a discussion maker. The other thing is as well, because when you study nutrition, you have to simultaneously study physiology as well, because you can't just do nutrition without physiology. That's what nutrition interacts with. So I could have done physiology, and I thought I like the idea of understanding both of those things. And I didn't get excited about just doing physiology on its own. Um, so it was more to do with it's so easy to have a conversation about nutrition. Everybody's interested about it. Everybody's got an opinion on it. Everybody's like, oh, I'm feeling a bit under the weather, or I'm going to do this protocol to feel better and like, decrease my recovery time from having a cold or something, or football performance, or running, or like what. Everybody, or like we said earlier on, the new latest fad diet that's out. It's like, oh, I've lost like 7 pounds in 3 days, and I've got to sit there and go, no, you might have lost a bit of body fat, but let me tell you explain what that is, what's happened there. But it's all about conversation, and I'm like, well, people are interested in it. People are more than happy to get involved with it. So,
and every single person in the world eats, don't they? Every single day. So
yeah.
It's, for like you say, the number of conversations you're going to be able to have is it's really something that you can impact a huge number of people, can't you? Through
Definitely.
it.
You've probably seen one of my previous. I've put every couple of years I'll put the same post up on social media just because some people won't have seen it or whatever. And one of them I put up quite a number of times was like, I love those people that are just not that into nutrition. To me as a nutritionist, that's like me hearing somebody say I'm not that into oxygen. It's like it's kind of essential. You can't you either eat well or you actively don't eat well. There is no like head in the sand and nothing happens thing. There is a direct and proportional effect if you're doing things well or not very well. There's an effect either way. There is no effects scenario. So yeah, again, it's not just nutrition. What I find interesting is just discussing the philosophy around nutrition and people's views around nutrition and challenging them and trying to get them to understand nutrition is something that happens over decades and forever, until you die. Morbid as a topic as it is, but every single facet of life it interacts with nutrition. So there is no stage where we go, oh, I'm just not that fussed. I'll just eat what I want and burn it off down the gym. It's like, yeah, but the quality of your nutrition still matters. You could be increasing your risk for disease or anything. You don't know until you know. So that's why we come into the educational side and really have some good discussions with lots of different people on those topics.
Yeah, and I suppose so I had a few notes that I made down before we came on, and I suppose this was the second part, but I suppose because you just mentioned sort of education there, it was kind of I suppose because I was thinking about this. I mean, I've got written down 4 things with like a question mark next to them, and it's kind of almost like and I know they're all important, so it's not it's kind of like but I've got education, accountability, support, community, because I kind of feel, I don't know if you feel, most people nowadays, and I know but we're going to go on to this whole confusion topic as well, because I had a conversation with a lady yesterday who was very confused because she's spoke to so many experts, all giving her different advice around nutrition and training. But in terms of general things, I don't know, I may be wrong. I would think that most people nowadays kind of have an idea of what is, I want to go, air quotes, good for them and maybe not so good for them. And is education still like a massive thing that's needed? Or because what I see, and you must know this as from what you do, a lot of people may not eat particularly very well, but they don't not eat very well, or they eat poorly, not because they're uneducated. It's almost because it could be many things, couldn't it? It's kind of like boredom, comfort,
Time.
Time, convenience, economics, all this kind of thing. So where would you kind of put is because obviously a lot of what you do is nutrition education, isn't it? So I mean, what do you feel about this? Just as a discussion.
Yeah, so I think that it's easy to sort of I get lots of questions just generally on in comment sections or on calls with clients or presentations, and it's like, what is it that I need to do? What's the best thing? What's the most important? And there are certain factors that are more important than others, but what we can't do is you can only simplify it to a point. At which point, if you simplify it any further, you're cutting out important things. So what I mean by that is it's like, let's say if you're designing a car or something, and said, well, what's the most important aspect of a car? Is it the engine? Is it the wheels? Is it the steering wheel? Is it the indicators? Is it the... It's like, well, you sort of need all of them plates spinning in tandem with each other for the whole thing to work. So I could come on here and be completely selfish and just go, forget about everything else. Nutrition is number one. But it's not, because I was naive when I was first started. It was actually almost 10 years to the day, by the way. It's like a little mini birthday for me today. So 10 years to the day I set up the business. And when I started the first couple of years, I was so naive, and I was just like, I'm just telling them exactly what to do, and they're not doing it. And I was like thinking, sort of, pointing the finger out that way and going, no, Shane, I've got an amazing support network from other veteran, researchers, professors, and things like that. And I'll have a chat with them every now and again. They're like, Shane, this isn't necessarily a them thing. You've got to meet them where they're at and not be judgmental in any way, shape, or form. It's not their fault. It's nothing. It doesn't matter. It's a you thing. You've got to bridge the gap. That's why they're enlisting your services. So yes, you're educating them about nutrition, but you're not factoring in the psychological aspects. So what do you know about behavior change? Because that's essentially what you're doing. You're trying to get this person to change their nutrition behaviors. So that's a psychological thing. That's nothing to do with nutrition. And then you go, okay, I've nailed it. Nutrition, psychology, and then you go, cool. And I've like for my doctoral research, there's a huge amount of behavior change, the science behind behavior change in there. We've nailed it now. And then you go, right, I'm going to help you psychologically, and you've got the nutrition, and they're still not doing it. And you go, what is going on now? And then you start to get to know people on an individual basis. And there was one client that I had probably about five or 6 years ago. And she sent me a message saying, can I jump on a call? And what I found out was the reason why it was so challenging is because she was a single mum. She had 3 kids. She lived on I think it was the 16th, 17th floor in a block of flats. The youngest kid was still in a pram. So for her to just go to the shop, she didn't have a car. So she had to walk everywhere in the middle of London. She's got to walk along the high street. The kids have got to walk past 16 takeaways and all the smells and people walking out with their takeaways and stuff, just to get to the one shop that's like way further away than anything else that she's passed. So then you start thinking, wow, that's not real. That's just a like an understanding skill that you've got to develop. And you go, right, okay, before I start working with anybody now, I need to know everything about them on an individual level. Because some people are carers and some people have got massive responsibilities there. Some people have got no kids, 3 kids. Some people live in the countryside, so it's difficult to get, they've got to do one big shop, and some people can just nip to the shop because it's the bottom of the road and there's 20 shops around within a 1 mile radius. So there's nutrition, there's the understand the individual, there's the psychological elements, there's the day-to-day levels of like what their calendar looks like. So, if there was like a postwoman versus a desk worker like me, believe it or not, I spend most of my time at the desk. That's different. And then also the structured physical activity that they do, that's different. Some people train for an ultra marathon. Some people are, their last exercise session was in year 11 in a PE session, and they've not done anything for 20 years. So you've got to. What I'm trying to say is, it's a what's the word? I don't like the word holistic because it doesn't really get you
multifaceted or
multifaceted, yeah, approach.
Yeah.
That's the way it has to work. And when people learn about all those different areas, they go, "Oh, right, that's how my brain works when I get stressed." And they notice that, and they put mechanisms in place to combat that. And then they go, but what does my nutrition need to look like? Even if I'm not stressed, I'm doing well. Right, I've learned about that now. This is how to construct. Literally just before I came on, the half an hour before this podcast, I was doing a presentation on meal planning. So there's like maybe 80 people up in Scotland now that have got a step-by-step guidance on like how do you just plan your meals out, like just as simple as that. So it's a combination of lots of different things working in tandem with one another.
That's what I love this. And like I said, the way you talk, the way you explained that is a real sensible, pragmatic kind of approach. And so many people, it's the same. You can use the same kind of thing with exercise and training as well. So many people I see try to prescribe a certain way of eating or a certain way of training as if they're talking to a robot, you know, and all you have to do is plug that, you know, like in the Matrix or whatever, you just plug it into the back of your head, it downloads, and you're just going to go away and do it. But we're, you know, so coaching, I suppose, that the human first, and the, you know, and knowing that, and like you say, if everyone just did what you told them was the best for them, you know, it would life would be very straightforward, wouldn't it? You know.
All you've got to do just
Well,
keep it
it's the thing of eat less and move more, isn't it?
going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone goes, the amount of like we were talking about, like, you know, comments on posts and stuff like that. Someone asks what the best diet is, and then you get 100 different answers or whatever.
Yeah.
I've seen that before on posts of, like, you know, you put something up and it's like exercise, diet, lifestyle, blah 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 blah. Get a coach, all of this sort of stuff, and someone will just put in the comments, eat less and move more. It's that simple. I did that, and I got what I wanted. It's like, well, that's brilliant, but you're not a mum of 3 who has to walk past 16 takeaways to get, you know. Because I mean, like, I was just thinking about that as you were saying it, and it's like you've got 3 kids screaming at you, smell that, I want some chips, I want this, I want that, and you've been told just prioritize protein or whatever it is, you know what I mean, and all of that, and it's like that's going to go out your head. You're going to be tired, and when you're tired, you crave the things that you probably shouldn't want anyway. You know what I mean? So I think that's amazing. That's fascinating.
Yeah, and then you get, again, even the people that come out with that stuff. Again, I like to think of, like, so what would happen if that was in a different industry? And so let's say you went to a financial advisor and they said, like, I can't save any money, and the guy just went, well, just earn more and spend less. Like, it's like, oh, wow, thanks. Here's the £100 for the session. I'll ride off into the sunset now. Like, it doesn't seem like that. It's so oversimplified.
Yeah. And so this lady that came in to sort of take it down, and I know you'll know what I'm talking about here. I had a lady come in to see me yesterday just for a bit of a chat, to kind of have a look around the gym, and I already knew. She said she'd been, you know, she'd had like some DNA tests done, she'd had like blood tests, she'd had this kind of, like, you know, where you go now and you can get like food intolerance tests. And from what I see, most people who, you know, then get told cut out gluten, cut out you know, sugar, cut out dairy, you know, get told all this stuff. Been to see various doctors on things, told because she's a woman in the menopause, you know, shouldn't do cardio because that raises your cortisol. You know, it's all to do with controlling your hormones. Even one doctor said to her, "Oh, it's very specific the way you do your strength training. You know, you should only really lift." And I remember it because she said, you know, 80% of your 1 rep max for no more than sets of 5. You know, and I think, how's a doctor said that to you? You know, like, because I said, people, for me, it seems that people make things complicated. Like I say, there's only a certain level of simplification you can put on things, otherwise you lose what's important, as you said. But it seems that I'm very, very wary of anyone who speaks in like absolutes, you know, like, and says, you must never do this, or you must always do this, or you must have this, or you mustn't have this, and this is good for you, this is bad for you. In that, and you know what I mean, when they have this kind of these protocols that are so strict and need to be adhered. And this woman was basically just confused out of her mind, you know, in terms of what she should do. And she said to me, one of the things she says, what I really need to know is just, what does my plate of food look like? You know what I mean? Like, and what you said earlier when you're talking about meal planning, like, what does it look like on a plate? You know, someone's told me I need 150 grams of carbohydrates and I need 80 to 100 grams of protein, but what does that look like on my plate? You know? And so do you find, is there a lot of confusion out there, I suppose, for the people that you talk to?
Yeah, because when you have to understand that people are asking these questions because they're frustrated. They've tried their 25th approach and it's not worked, and they're just pulling their hair out at this stage. They've been doing it for years, maybe decades already. It's like, can somebody just give me the answer, please? So you have to empathize with that and understand that, but you also have to let them know that the reason why it hasn't worked, and literally 99.9% of the time, is because, oh well, I tried this weight management club, or I tried this detox kit, or I tried these supplements, I tried fat burners, I tried a keto diet, I tried this, I tried that, tried this, tried that. Every single one of those strategies is solely geared to short-term benefit, short-term quick fix results. How do I lose as much weight as possible in as short a space of time as physically possible? Not one strategy I've ever heard anybody coming to, because by the way, they wouldn't be coming to me in the first place, has been geared around, right, we're definitely going to help you get some results because we need to get you results. There's no problem with that. But how I'm more interested in how we're going to get you set up over the next 50 years. Where's the detox coming there? Where's the oh, so it's that powder that you shake up and you drink it. So when you're 60, you're going to be doing that, or I don't know where that is. So let's just get rid of all the quick fix stuff. And yes, they're absolutely right. They do need to know what their plates need to look like. However, when it gets to that stage, a lot of people go, "Can you just do me a meal plan?" And I've not done a meal plan in probably 14 years, because we educate them how to create their own meal plans based on their preferences and their environment and lifestyle. And then they're empowered to make their own decisions forever now. So again, I'll be full of analogies today. I'll have to apologize in advance, but I think it paints the picture better. It's like my eldest. Let's say he's got a maths test next week, and he's like, "Daddy, can you just give me the answers?" It's like, "Of course I can. That'll help you pass the test today. Of course it will. You've got no benefit whatsoever for the rest of your life now." So as a parent, I'm like, "I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. I'm never ever ever going to compromise on the integrity of what I know you need to do, just for the sake of creating a fad diet and cashing in or something or whatever. Like, it just will never ever happen." So if we go through it in a nutshell, because it's more based in principles than specifics. So in the presentation that I literally did today, so the first thing we talked about was like what augments weight loss, what creates weight loss, and it's the quantities, it's the total amounts that you consume from food and drink. So there's a website that I use to work out my one-to-one clients' calorie recommendations. And again, even then, it's an estimate. It's not perfect science. You have to understand that too. So, without being in a £500,000 lab at the university, you can't get it perfect. You've got to estimate it. So there's still a little bit of leeway there. So we get them the calorie numbers, and then after that we go, what's next important? So we go quantity and quality. So quantity's ticked, we know the numbers now, and then we move on to quality. So again, I'm very much simplifying this, but have we got a good chunk of protein in every one of your meals? And again, we have to educate people about protein, because certain people, in particular females, are like, I don't want to eat too much protein. I don't want to end up looking like a bodybuilder. And as we know, it's like, well, you best stop driving your car in case you become an F1 driver then, because you will never ever, there's much more to it than that. Just don't worry. And protein helps with everything from muscle preservation whilst you're losing weight, to satiety values, to the feeling of fullness, prolongs the feeling of fullness, muscle repair, energy levels, hormones. It helps with, like, you could do like a 10-hour presentation just on protein. So get the protein in. Let's get a good chunk of protein in each meal. And then I'll send them a list of protein sources so that they know, how much is in a chicken breast or protein powder or pea protein or, chickpeas, beans, pulses, and a nice mixture of different sources. And then the next section is the nutrient dense part. So, fruit and veg in particular. And what we do is we've worked in primary schools. We've worked with hundreds and hundreds of primary school children over the years, and we use the same strategy with the children as we do with the adults I work with. And in that section, just eat a rainbow. Like, that's all you've got to do. Like, just when you're having 5 or 6, 7 portions of fruit and veg per day, minimum of 5. Just make sure you're getting the variety in as well from lots of different colors, because more colors just means more variety of micronutrients. So now you're getting, trace elements, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber in one principle. So they're not thinking about, oh, how do I top up my vitamin D today? Like, it's too specific. You're going to be overwhelmed with data and nonsense. It's the principle that matters. So calories, is there a chunk of protein on every one of my plates? Have I got 2 portions of fruit and or veg on each one of my plates? If you eat 3 times a day, that's 6 portions a day. So done. The principle's covered that now. Happy days. And then the next stage is the rest. So I just call it the rest, because some people are like, well, Auntie Julie went on a low carb diet, so she got great results. I need to do that. But I don't like the idea of that. And it's like, well, you don't have to. You could go low carb. You can go low fat. You can have, you know, a nice balance between the two, as long as you're hitting the calories, protein, and the quality section, you know, from fruit and veg. Whatever happens after that, there's research about this where there's been two groups of people following a low carb and a low fat diet, but they're calorie matched, just to see if there's any above and beyond advantage to having a low carb approach or low fat approach for the purpose of weight loss. And there's no statistical difference whatsoever. So at that stage, we go, I don't care, just do it. So it's your preference. If you love carbs, maybe bump your carbs proportions up, but just reduce the fat section. If you're not that fussed either way, you might want to increase the fat or have it balanced. Or it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It might matter if you're training more. So there's little asterisks.
I suppose, yeah, what you've just described there, those 4 principles, like you said, they are principles: quantity, quality, nutrient density, and then the rest. You know, those 4 principles, they are kind of universal principles for just like every person, really, without being specific, you know. And then you obviously have specificity and specifics, like you're just about to say, I think, in terms of if you're training more, it might change. And but for your average person, we spoke last week about how like 87% of the people in the country don't actually do regular kind of structured exercise at all. For those 87%, you know, this is a good way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And again, there's copious amounts of data to support everything. Those simple blueprints that I've just shared there. And then from that point onwards, it really is down to personal preference is the main variable from that point, because some people, if you just think about the different diet types out there, there's like intermittent fasting, there's a couple of different key ones, there's like 5-2 approaches, there's like daily fasting approaches, there's maybe ketogenic diets, possibly, vegan diets, pescatarian diets, there's tracking, there's portion control, there's so many different types of strategies you can follow. So at that stage you go, look, prioritize what we've just described there, no matter what strategy you follow. But you can go on a low carb approach and follow those principles. You can do intermittent fasting and still follow those principles. So as long as you've got those principles ticked, at that stage, it's up to you. You know, if you want to go low carb, amazing, great. If that works for you, brilliant. And even at that stage, talking about educating people about every single dietary strategy has got a positive aspect, some sort of additional benefit, debatably. And then every single dietary strategy has its drawbacks too. So if you do the 5-2 approach, you're going to be super hungry on those 2 fasting days. You're having 200 or 300 calories on those days, let's say. That's a big drawback. But for me personally, I'd be fine with that. I genuinely don't mind hunger. It doesn't rule me personally, but I can't speak on behalf of other people who their bodies work completely differently to mine, and just a little bit of hunger and they're pulling their hair out. So hunger reduction is massive for them. It's not massive for me though. So that's where the specificity comes in. The personalization section comes in, and then of course, just no matter what, just stay hydrated as well. Just to add
that's all cool. I've got a couple of questions, but I've got like this is based on my personal journey with this over the last like 10-15 years of like just eating and doing whatever I like, not exercising much, getting a bit fat, being knackered all the time, getting like massive crashes and then having to eat and stuff like that. Because I like, and the way I eat now is I eat kind of like you've just said, prioritize protein. I don't eat loads of carbs because carbs make like, I can't handle carbs very well, and I get a massive crash if I have too many carbs. For breakfast, say I'm spaced out an hour and a half later, like literally just like whoa, swimming. So there's a couple of questions behind that, but just a bit of background. Like, so now I kind of intermittent fast because I train in the morning. I to get everything done that I need to do, and I eat about 11 o'clock, and I haven't eaten since 7 o'clock last night. But that's what, and I have 2 meals a day. That fits me, right?
Yeah.
But I eat loads in those meals, right? So, and that works for me, and I'm fine. But what I used to do, because I was kind of experimenting with fasting and stuff, was from Sunday dinner to Monday dinner in the evenings, I'd do a 24-hour fast every week and think like, all right, I'll see how that feels. And I was doing all right with that. Well, then I got a working Cocker Spaniel and I was out walking more and I was knackered all the time and I was still doing that. So I just started to eat again and then I was okay again, right? So I had the energy back. But I got two questions about about what you've just said about everything. So the first one is, the second one's going to be an inflammatory question, but the first one is, so you've got your protein and then your calorie number. In fact, I've got three questions. You've got your protein and your calorie number, and then fat and carbs. So it's just a trial and error between the fat and carbs. That's what it was for me. I was like, if I eat more fat than carbs, I'm better.
Yeah.
It just works better for me. So is that like is that something that people will deal with? Because my missus can eat as many carbs as she likes, and
Yeah.
she's fine. And there's now on her. She's like that.
Yeah.
So there's that. The second one was the calorie. I mean, there's loads of calorie calculators online. And people will just put like, you know, are they all like, as long as they use the correct formula, do they work? Can you just Google it and you'll find one that works? And then also it's like, well, because people will look at that. In my experience, people will look at that and then go, okay, I just need to eat this many calories. And then they'll go, well, I'm not losing weight. And it's like, well, yeah, because you put that you were hugely active when you're not, or whatever. So that's another trial and error thing. And then the last one was, people get scared of protein because they think it's going to damage their kidneys. I just thought I'd throw that one in there for you because people get scared about things from what they've read on the internet, like James's client, right? And it's like, yeah, but you're saying eat more protein, but I might die. And it's like, well, you know,
we can tackle the protein one straight away. So, you know, just don't forget that you've got like bodybuilders and stuff like that, and they have ridiculous levels of protein intakes. And not just ridiculous levels, but they also do it over sustained periods of time as well. So sometimes it's not just the dosage; it's the if it's prolonged or not. You'll not be going anywhere near bodybuilders' levels of protein. And so by the way, one thing I will say is, providing that you've not got any clinical reason for this, you know, you won't have any issues whatsoever as somebody who doesn't have any clinical reason. So just do not worry about that at all. It's a non-issue.
We had Dr. Nancy Allen on a while ago, and we were talking about like creatine and stuff like that. And she basically said, if you've got a kidney, because there was someone actually had asked a question about kidney dialysis, and she was like, if you've got kidney problems, then get looked at first before you do anything. But if you haven't, don't worry about it. No. And then that was it.
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
And then so that was the protein one. Sorry, I'm.
There was the calorie calculator.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with you have to use the tool for its intended purpose and respect it for its positives and its limitations. What people want is to go onto a website and get the exact perfect answer. And like I said earlier on, you know, there's a reason why nutrition science literature doesn't, they don't go on to Google to predict somebody's basal metabolic rate, for example. They'll have other more accurate versions of that. But then, you know, people in day to day, like, what do you have access to these facilities? And you know, obviously not. So what we need to do is get as close as physically possible, and that's what the purpose of it is for. It's a bit like, you know, like an archer or something, like, you know, shooting at, you know, a target. It points you towards the target. That's all it does. It does. You know, if you're getting a bullseye, there's a little bit more to it than that. So what we do is every client that I work with will say, we've given you an estimate now. And the estimates come out based on your physical activity levels. Let's just keep it nice and simple. It might be 2,000 calories per day, given their exercise levels and training and so on. And we're aiming to lose 2 pounds of body fat per week. Now, what they do is, to get the accurate measure, is they stay consistent with that for 4, 5, 6 weeks. And we take a look at what's happened with their body weight, because your body weight reduction will tell you where you're at anyway. So let's say, for example, over those 6 weeks, you're losing on average 1 pound per week. So now we know your calorie deficit is 500 calories per day. We know that now. So the purpose at the beginning was to get sort of aim, and before you fire, if you like, it gives you a better aim at what you're looking at. And then to hit the bullseye is to stay consistent and go, well, my body doesn't lie, you know, that you can't get away from what physiologically the outcome. So it'll might fluctuate a bit, but over the course of those 6 weeks, we now know that you're losing £1 per week. So because we want to lose £2 per week, we now can go, okay, cool. So what we can do is we can drop it down by 500 calories. So your new targets are 1,500 calories per day. Now you'll lose £2 per week. Done. And again, I've used a very oversimplified, just for diagram purposes there. There's obviously lots of other factors. But so again, if we don't use the website at all to begin with, it's really tricky because you might need 10 weeks to ascertain what the challenges are. And do you get where I'm coming from? It just it's shorten the period of time needed.
So just for the listener, Shane, so what you've done there is it's 3,500 calories, I think, is the kind of, you know, accepted, you know, rough accepted, that to create a deficit of 3,500 calories, you'll lose £1 of fat. So you've said over 7 days, 500 calories per day gives you that £1. Just sort of people, just so if they were listening and wondered where you got the 500 from. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then obviously represented as £2 per week, the calorie deficit would be 7,000 per week, the calorie deficit. So that would be minus 1,000 calories. Again, just take that with a pinch of salt too, because it's very difficult to have exactly 1,000 calories per day. You know, you go out for a beer with your dad and some slice of cake with your mum at the weekend or something. It's like, right, there's going to be a peak there, but it might be a little bit lower on Monday and Tuesday. So it's the average that's important, not the oh no, my calorie deficit's 957 today. Like, don't worry about that stuff.
yeah.
I've said that to people before, and it blows their minds. Some people, they're like, "What? I can average it over the week or the month?" And I'm like, "Yes, you can." And they're like, "Wow, that's amazing." But then what they tend to do is front load it.
All right. Well, I'll tell you on the reverse side of that how so this interacts with the psychological elements and why the education is important for psychological elements. So I had somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they came back from holiday, and they went away for 1 week, and they'd put 7 pounds on, and they were just losing their mind, like absolutely, like, I cannot believe I have put half a stone on. This is ridiculous. But then I said, okay, that's absolutely fine. So let's take a look at the science. So let's say you didn't go on holiday, and you came to me and said, Shane, I need to put on 7 pounds this week. How would I do that for you? As in 7 pounds of body fat. How would I do that for you? Bear in mind, like we said earlier on, if you want to put 2 pounds on, you've got to have a calorie surplus of 7,000 calories that week. That is a lot. That's for 2 pounds. You've put 7 pounds on. And then the question is, well, where's that come from then? It's like, well, your diet's completely changed whilst you're over there. Do you normally have cocktails in the swimming pool at 1 o'clock? Like, no. Do you normally have that much salt on your foods and it tastes incredible 3 times a day? No. Do you normally have that amount of alcohol over the course of the week? No. Do you normally have ice cream 4 times a week with the kids? No. Cool. So we've got carbohydrate storage that probably doesn't take place normally to as much of a degree. Also, the fluid retention that is associated with that carbohydrate storage. Also, the salt intakes, which further adds to fluid retention. And maybe you have put a pound and a half on, in body fat, which is cool. So now 80-90% of the problem doesn't exist in their head, because it's like, I can guarantee you, if you go back to what you were doing before you went on holiday, a massive chunk, probably 2/3 of that, will have just completely gone by next week. So let's have a catch up then, and guess what happens 95% of the time? Oh yes, I know now never to freak out when I go on holiday, and it's like, amazing, yes, like the education's working. So they'll never flip out ever again now, because they've had that experience and they've been educated about what's happening physiologically speaking. So it can work, it can work both ways as well.
Yeah, this is It's, and was there another question, Pete? You had you.
Sorry, there was a third.
What was the first one? The first one you asked, because there was the protein. There was
it was protein and calories, and then so you've got your protein, and then you've got your calories. So you take the amount of protein you have. You've got 2,000 calories, and you have, I don't know, 1,000 calories of protein. You take that off, you've got 1,000 left, and that can be fat and carbs, and split however you like.
Absolutely.
And it's just, I'm mainly asking because did I struggle with this? I think before I knew, I was like, well, I should eat less carbs. Or, but then fat's bad for you. So I shouldn't do that. So I should eat more carbs or whatever. But if I eat more carbs, it doesn't fit me. But some people will eat more carbs than fat, won't they? And other people will be the other way around. And some people might just do it half and half. So is that a trial and error thing as well?
Pretty much, yeah. The only thing I would say, just to avoid anybody thinking that they can be extreme with it, like don't completely remove carbs and just have fat, or vice versa. Just please don't do that.
Yeah.
You can do it over a very short period of time, but just don't. We need to prioritize your health. So don't forget, like glucose is the primary energy source for your brain to function. So if you have ridiculously low carb, low carb intakes, you're probably going to have a bit of brain fog, for example. And also, you're not going to recover after your training sessions very well, because that's the primary source of energy for your exercise. So you can only lower it to a degree. And then with your carbs and fats as well, what I wanted to say was the composition of those carbs and fats is important too. So, if we do two extreme versions, so let's say the fat was like just lard or something, and the carbs were, I don't know, M&Ms and jelly babies. And that's very, very different composition wise to if the carbs came from beans and pulses and whole grain bread and things like that. That are not heavily processed, that are as minimally processed as possible. And then the fats came from, oily fish and avocados, and let's say some olives as well, and some rapeseed oil or something like that, or olive oil. That's a very different two examples there. So the composition of those carbs and fats matters too. So with those in mind, they can fluctuate. And again, nutrition is all about trial and error, because I could say to you, Peter, I want you to eat this, and literally send you a meal plan, and you go and eat it, and it doesn't work. And you go, oh, wow, okay, so we've got some interesting data now. Like, he felt brain fog and he wasn't recovering from sessions and things. And you look for the clues and you go, okay, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll increase our protein intakes and carbs and just reduce your fat intakes. We'll see how you get on next week with that approach. And then you go, I felt better recovery-wise now. And you go, brilliant. And then, you take a look at the symptoms and challenges and try and see how the diet interacts with that. And then after 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of that, happy days. You've got 90% of the way there.
Because I think from what you're saying, the top metric, if you like, or the thing that's going, and this is only going to really affect if we're talking about, I suppose, if we're looking at, because the majority of people, I suppose, and again, we try and move away from it a bit, but a lot of people are overweight or over fat or want to lose weight. I mean, that's just kind of just the fact of the matter. So the overarching principle, which is principle number one, quantity of calories or calorie consumption. So the calories that you consume, either being in a surplus, in a neutral, or in a deficit, is going to determine what happens. So from that perspective, if you were going to eat, I'm not suggesting you do, if you were going to eat, like lard and M&Ms, if you were underneath
I believe I said that.
No, yeah.
If you that's going to be the soundbite from this.
Yeah,
the lard and M&M's diet. It's like the lard and M&M's diet. It's the new
it's
thing.
like those you've got 3 little kids, obviously. Those bird feeders they make with like lard and raisins.
Yeah.
You hang them in the If you were going to eat like lard and M&Ms and you were in a calorie deficit, you would lose weight. But where you're saying is the quality of the food, because it's not just about whether, this is the other thing, isn't it? It's not just about whether you lose weight or whether you get to a lower weight or you're slimmer or skinnier. It's like you said, it's looking at your health for the next 50 years. So I think that's so important as well, because like you said, a lot of these people who think, well, I just want to lose weight, I want to lose 3 stone, 4 stone, whatever, in the next however many months. It's just about losing the weight, and there's not the thought of the long-term health or the sustainability of the approach that they're using, is there?
Yeah, definitely. And again, my brain goes haywire when you have these really regular statements that are made in nutrition, not just from you, James, like generally hundreds of times a day. And it's like, I just want to lose weight immediately, straight away. Like we've supported like tens of thousands of people over the last 10 years. It's never, ever, ever about weight, ever. It like weight, as in the number might come down. That might be a part of it, but it's nothing to do with that. Every single time I have a one-to-one client and we go, I want to lose weight. It's like, great. And what we do is we go down a few layers and go, well, why do you want to lose weight then? And they go, well, I'll tell you what it was. I was confident like 3 or 4 years ago, and then I went through a divorce and I put loads of weight on, and I just want to get back into my old clothes, basically. It's like, great. So why do you want to get back into your old clothes? Why is that so important to you? And then the story, you just unravel the thread a little bit more and a little bit more. It might take an hour to get there. There's plenty of patience, plenty of discussion. And then eventually you ask why, like 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And it's nothing to do with weight. What they want to do is like, I'm narrating an exact client, by the way. And there's a gentleman, and he basically said that he's after his divorce, obviously he has his kids predominantly, and he's got 3 children, takes them to the park at the weekend. They run around playing football and TIG and stuff, but because he's overweight now, he has to sit down on the bench for 3/4 of the time whilst they're there. And he feels as though he's not taking part and he's missing out on his kids growing up. Number 2, he feels as though like he's not a very good role model for the kids growing up. And number 3, his body composition is, again, I know how it is nowadays, but we all know, body composition wise, he wants to be attractive to the opposite sex and meet somebody new and be confident at work when he's presenting, and he's quite high up in his job, and he's doing a PowerPoint, and all he's thinking of, he's not thinking about the numbers, he's thinking my shirt's too tight, should I put my blazer on or keep it off, or like what would look better? And he's not thinking about his job, like he's thinking about that stuff every day. And so you psychologically you drill down to that. So we go, okay, weight loss is important, but that's for your health. That's not really for your result. What happens is you will lose weight, but also we need to we're losing body fat whilst prioritizing the preservation of muscle tissue as well. So it's not weight loss, it's body fat loss whilst preserving muscle tissue. That's the new outcome that we're really interested in. How we do that is hitting your protein intakes and meshing that with regular resistance training. Because if you've got 2 people, one's in a calorie deficit, but they couldn't care less about their protein intakes. Person B's in the calorie deficit, but they do care about their protein intakes, and they always consistently hit their optimal protein intakes. Person B will have much better body composition when they reach their goal weight than person A. Because person A, they'll be losing body fat and muscle tissue. Your body doesn't care where it loses weight from. It just loses it from fat and muscle tissue. So you've got to instruct your body, physiologically speaking, to say, I want this muscle tissue preserved. So resistance training 3 or 4 times a week, and also optimal protein intakes. Again, you don't even have to be perfect with that. I'm not saying be anal with it. I'm just saying 90% of the time, let's say on average, you're nailing your protein intakes over 12, 16, 20, however many weeks it needs you to get to your goal. You will be in a much better body composition. And that's when you get people that they reach their goal weight and they're like, I'm still not happy with how I look. Like I'm not happy with this. I thought weight loss was the thing, and it's not. It's not just weight. The weight will come down, but it's body composition too. And nobody's taught you how to do that. So, we've shortened your journey now by probably, months and months and months, because person A's got to now go and do it phase 2 of working on their body composition. And by the way, we're talking about weight loss here, but throughout that, they're learning about nutrition. So they're set up for decades as well, just to let you know.
Yeah.
We're talking about the short-term stuff, but,
There was something I wrote down right at the beginning when you were talking about who you work with, and you don't work, like, it's like, when people weren't talking about velocity and all this sort of stuff, they were asking about nutrition and stuff. And you said something about absenteeism at work, and that guy you've just mentioned was a great example, because it's not even absenteeism at work, it's absenteeism with the kids and all of that sort of stuff. But I wrote down presenteeism as well, because there'll be people who are at work, and you've just said he's not thinking about work. He's thinking about what he looks like. He's thinking about something else.
Yeah.
He's thinking all these thoughts, which will affect his mood and all of that sort of stuff. And he can't focus and blah, blah, blah. And that'll be hugely common. So the amount of people who are at work and aren't as productive as they could be and aren't getting the promotions they could get and aren't feeling the sense of achievement that they could feel because of what they eat is huge.
Loads of data on this. There's it's a huge contributing factor. It's not the whole pie. There's stress and movement and exercise and pay scales and do they feel undervalued at work. There's lots of when it comes to workplace wellness, there's lots of other factors. But one of the things that's overlooked almost always is nutrition, because you get companies straight away go, it's a bit of low morale in the office at the minute. Let's get like an inspirational speaker in and motivate them or something. Or it could be, some people have hurt their back or something maybe, and it's like that. By the way, I'm not trivializing it. I'm just saying, oh, let's get like a manual handling course in then or something to reduce absenteeism. These might contribute, but the thing, like we said earlier on, with people at your gym, James, they're exercising 3 or 4 times a week, whereas nutrition happens 3 or 4 or 5 times every single day of the week. So because there's so much to go at there, if you manipulate that and improve the practices by even small marginal amounts, 5-10% even, and they're not perfect, they've just improved that, and they do that consistently over 12 months, and that's one person, and you do that over 2,000 employees, the absenteeism and presenteeism, you can measure presenteeism as well. You can see a marked difference in pre and post in interventions like these. And again, if one member of staff's off and they're on, I don't know, £50,000 a year, they're basically paying, if they're off for 6 months, there's £25,000 on somebody sat at home there. And not only that, they've got to replace them for 6 months. So agency fees and also paying the other person, so they're paying double there. And that's one person. What if there's 100 people out of those 2,000 off? And then you can start roughly, again, I'm just using simple figures here, but you can start calibrating well, what's the cost here to the company? And if we can improve that by 2%, not even completely solve it, just 2%, it's like, all right, cool, that might save us, again, whatever that would look like, £200,000 every year or something, or £500,000, I don't know, depends on the company. So yeah, that's why I'm really interested in it, because everything that we do, I only work with a handful of people at any given time because the time that it takes. I want to work with people one-to-one, but I also have a preference towards helping as many people as possible in the same calendar week, which is why we work with PTs, because some of them have got 1,000 clients, 20 clients, 100 clients too. And then we work in schools because we can help 100 primary school children and parents. We work in workplaces, we could potentially help thousands of people there. So anything that's helping loads of people, that's what I'm interested in. So the workplace wellness fits well with that, really.
No, this is brilliant. It's been so good talking to you, Shane. It really has. And like I say, I think that when we start working together within the gym, you've then obviously got most of the time, because most of our members are in their 50s or their 60s, probably, they've got children and potentially grandchildren. So when people become more educated and really get onto this kind of thing, or even just partners at home, so many times we have couples who train at the gym, and when one of the couple is even basic things like, say someone was trying to give up smoking, both people in the couple smoke, how likely is it that one's going to give up smoking when the other's still smoking? But if you've got people kind of pulling in the same direction and you can influence each other, I think it's so positive. So no, that's been really interesting, Pete, isn't it?
Yeah. I've got one more thing to share. That Shane, I want to educate Shane.
Go on.
Let's do that.
I've got a foolproof method for keeping your weight in check, and James knows what it is.
Oh God!
All of our listeners already.
It's a measuring method, isn't it?
Yeah, it's foolproof, honestly, and all of our listeners know what it is already. Well, anyone who's listened for a while. But basically, my what do you call it?
Boxer short waistband. Oh, okay.
My method. So on my boxer shorts, when the waistband starts to double over, that's when I eat a bit less.
That's your little amber sign.
Yeah, for a couple of weeks, honestly, and that's what I do. Like when I put them on and I'm starting to go like, oh, that, and it just go, you can feel it go like, poof.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh no. So I just eat a bit less for a couple of weeks and then it's fine.
Absolutely love it.
That's the warning. That's the warning light in it. That's the little thing on the. I had to take my car for a service today. That's the little
Yes,
comes up
exactly.
comes up on the dashboard. The little warning.
I'm still in touch with the International Olympic Committee, so when they're building their next course out, I'll just mention that to them as maybe one of the slides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mentioned this is an amber sign.
Brilliant. So Shane, if people are listening and want to follow you, want to find out more about what you do, I mean, we didn't really talk a lot today, but you do work with, like you say, with gyms, with personal training studios, with communities of people who are looking to, get educated, get kind of coached and kind of educated and working towards nutrition. But what is the or working towards better nutrition, I should say? What is the best place for people to find you or to follow you?
Yeah, so the two things that I use most is Instagram, which is quantum_nutrition_wellness. I have to bring it up on my phone every time because I keep forgetting what the tag thing is. And then just on Facebook as well. So we've got the Quantum Nutrition Facebook page, but predominantly it's like my page is what I use, most really. Sorry, my personal profile. So it's just Shane, the letter J, Nugent, and then it says MSc afterwards. So that's it. Anybody. I just like the old-fashioned way of people reaching out, sending me a message, send me a friend request. Hey, mate, how you doing? Oh, I saw you on this podcast. Like, yeah, amazing. I hope you found it well. You have a bit of a discussion from there, and if they need help, great. If they just want to follow and see me hear how to create like low-calorie pizzas or something, then amazing. I'm more than welcome to do that too. If they're a PT and they want help with that and having that completely handled for them, and all of their hundreds of members, supported as part of their programs. Work in primary schools, you can work in workplaces. There's a myriad of different things that we can help with as we have over the last 10 years, really. So, just reach out. More than happy to help. We'll go from there.
Excellent. Yeah. And if you are listening as a member of Unique Results as well, like I say, we're working with Shane at the moment to get something in place for January, I think, is when we're going to try and kind of kick off things with Shane. So he will be supporting and educating and helping and working with our members, hopefully from the new year, which should be great. So thank you so much for your time, Shane. There's so much. Obviously, this topic, like you say, there's so much we could talk about. I'm sure we'll have you back on again in the future. And talk about some other things around nutrition, but that's been really, really, it's just great. Like I say, it's a really good entry level to introduce everyone to you and to your kind of principle based system, if you like, or just the way that you work, because it's like I say, very pragmatic and very applicable for all, I think. So thank you so much. Brilliant. Well, thank you everybody for listening and watching. That was episode 274. And next week we'll be back with 275. We've got Caroline Southgate with us next week, who is a physiotherapist who also, I'm not exactly sure, she supports a lot of older people, but I'm not sure if she runs like homes or kind of runs their care in homes for lots of older people. And we're going to be talking about kind of healthy aging and longevity, and what we can do in our 60s, 70s and 80s, and probably more importantly what we can do now so that when we get to our 60s, 70s and 80s, we're more independent and able to look after ourselves. But that's Caroline Southgate next week. Thank you so much, Shane.
You're very, very welcome. Loved it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Pete.
You're very, very welcome.
We'll see you next week. Until then, bye-bye.